The sky above Kethmor was filled with ships. Over 2,000 Kethmoran warships hung in space around their home world, forming the largest defensive fleet in their empire's history. Every vessel that could carry weapons had been called back to protect the heart of their civilization. Emperor Vashitek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, watching as human ships emerged from hyperspace. They came slowly, deliberately, like predators who knew their prey had nowhere to run. First dozens, then hundreds, then over 1,000 vessels appeared in the darkness. "How many ships do they have?" the Emperor asked his fleet commander. "Our sensors count 1,200 human vessels, my lord. We outnumber them almost 2 to 1. Emperor Vashtek felt a moment of satisfaction. The humans had fought well in their recent battles, destroying supply depots and military bases across Kethmoran space. But now they faced the full might of the Empire. Now they would learn what it meant to challenge a warrior species. "They are brave to come here," he admitted. "But bravery without wisdom is just another word for stupidity." On the human flagship Ambassador Hyunwoo, Admiral Inho John studied the enemy formations. The Kethmoran ships were arranged in perfect military order, every vessel positioned for maximum firepower. It was an impressive sight, the kind that would have terrified any normal enemy. But humans were not normal enemies. "General Yujin Park reports that her ground forces are ready," said his communications officer. 10,000 Marines in stealth dropships waiting for the signal. "And our special broadcast?" "Ready to transmit on all frequencies, sir." Inho nodded. Before the battle began, there was something he needed to share with the Kethmoran people, something that might help them understand what their leaders had really done when they destroyed Harmony's Edge. "Open all communication channels. Override their military frequencies if necessary. I want every being in this system to hear what I'm about to say." The transmission reached not just the Kethmoran fleet, but civilian communication networks across their home world. In cities and towns, in schools and homes, millions of Kethmoran citizens stopped what they were doing to listen as a human voice spoke to them for the first time. But it was not Admiral Inho's voice they heard. Instead, the speakers carried the sound of children, human children reading from handwritten notes. "My name is So-Young Kim," said a young woman's voice. "My father was Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim. He died at Harmony's Edge 6 months ago, trying to make peace with your people." In her dormitory on Mars, So-Young continued reading from her father's personal diary, the one he had kept while preparing for the peace conference. Her voice was calm and clear, carrying across the vast distances between stars to reach the enemies who had killed her father. "My dad wrote this about your people. The Kethmoran value strength above all else, but I believe this comes from fear, not cruelty. They have been fighting for so long that they have forgotten what peace feels like. If we can show them that strength and kindness can exist together, maybe we can help them remember." On the Kethmoran homeworld, civilians listened in growing confusion. This was not the voice of a conqueror or a warrior. This was a daughter talking about her father's hopes and dreams. So-Young's brother Taijun took over the reading. His voice was younger but equally clear. "Dad spent 3 years learning our language because he wanted to speak to us in words we would understand. He studied our history, our culture, our poetry. He even learned our children's songs because he hoped someday Kethmoran and human children could play together." The reading continued for several minutes, each entry revealing more about the human ambassador's genuine desire for peace. He had written about Kethmoran art, their philosophy, their scientific achievements. He had seen them not as enemies but as potential friends. Emperor Vashtek listened to the broadcast with growing unease. "Turn it off," he commanded. "I cannot, my lord. They are overriding all our communication systems." The diary entries painted a picture of a being who had truly believed that different species could work together. Ambassador Hyunwoo had written about his own children, hoping they would grow up in a galaxy where war was just a memory from the past. The final entry was written the day before he left for Harmony's Edge. So-Young continued. Dad wrote, "Tomorrow I will meet the Kethmoran delegation. I am nervous but also excited. This could be the beginning of something wonderful. My olive branch may seem like a small gesture, but sometimes small gestures change everything. I pray that we choose friendship over fear." The transmission ended, leaving the Kethmoran fleet in uncomfortable silence. In the cities below, civilian crowds gathered around public screens, talking quietly among themselves. Many had never heard the truth about what happened at Harmony's Edge. Their government had told them that the humans had threatened their empire, that the attack was necessary for defense. But the diary entries told a different story. They spoke of a father who had genuinely wanted peace, who had studied their culture out of respect, not conquest, who had died holding a symbol of friendship while trying to prevent the very war that was now about to begin. Admiral Inho finally spoke, his voice carrying to every ship and every world in the Kethmoran system. You have heard the words of Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim. You have heard his children reading his private thoughts about your people. This man came to you in peace and you murdered him for it. The human fleet began to move forward, but their approach was careful and methodical. They were not charging into battle like warriors drunk on bloodlust. They moved like surgeons, precise and controlled. Your emperor told you that humans were weak because we offered friendship instead of demanding submission. He convinced you that our peace was a threat to your strength. But now you face the consequences of that choice. The first exchange of weapons fire lit up the space between the fleets. Kethamoran plasma cannons met human particle beams in a display that could be seen from the planet's surface. But something was wrong with the human attack. They were targeting military ships while carefully avoiding damage to anything that might harm civilians on the planet below. General Eugene Park's ground forces moved like shadows through the battle, their stealth ships slipping past the fighting fleets to land on Kethmore itself. But instead of attacking cities or military bases, they went to communication centers and broadcasting stations. Within hours, Eugene's Marines had taken control of the planet's information networks. Now when Kethmoran civilians turned on their screens, they saw something their government had never shown them: footage from Harmony's Edge. They saw Ambassador Hyunwoo holding his olive branch, trying to communicate even as his station exploded around him. They saw human diplomats who had come in peace being slaughtered without mercy. They saw the difference between their government's propaganda and the terrible reality. In space, the battle continued, but the outcome was never in doubt. Human ships that looked like converted civilian vessels revealed weapons that could crack moons. Mining equipment tore through Kethmoran hulls like they were made of tinfoil. Research ships jammed enemy communications while targeting their weak points with surgical precision. Emperor Vashtek watched his fleet being systematically destroyed and finally understood the terrible mistake he had made. The humans had not come to his system as conquerors. They had come as teachers, showing him the price of rejecting friendship. Open communications to the human fleet, he commanded. My lord? Do it! The screen lit up with Admiral Inho's face. The human commander looked tired but determined, like a man who had seen too much death and wanted it to end. I surrender, Emperor Vashtek said simply. My empire surrenders unconditionally. Inho studied the Kethmoran leader for a long moment. Your surrender is accepted. But first you will broadcast to your people the truth about what happened at Harmony's Edge. You will tell them that you chose to murder diplomats who came in peace. And then we will help you build the peace that Ambassador Hyunwoo dreamed of. As the Emperor's confession reached every world in Kethmoran space, Admiral Inho opened a new communication channel. This message would go beyond the battle zone, reaching every species in the galaxy. This is Admiral Inho Jian of the Human Peacekeeper Armada. The Kethmoran Empire has surrendered, but Earth's offer of friendship remains open to all species who choose cooperation over conquest. We never wanted to fight this war. We only wanted peace. 6 months later, Ambassador Hyojin Ryu stood on the observation deck of the new diplomatic station built at the site where Harmony's Edge had been destroyed. The station's name was Second Chance, and it hosted delegates from dozens of species who had come to discuss trade, cooperation, and mutual defense. Through the window, she could see Kethmoran ships working alongside human vessels to build a monument to the victims of the first peace conference. Emperor Vashtek had personally requested to help with the construction, saying his people needed to remember the cost of choosing war over friendship. The olive branch from Ambassador Hyunwoo's hand had been recovered from the wreckage and now grew in a special garden at the center of the new station. It had taken root in soil from both Earth and Kethmore, its branches reaching toward the stars where beings from different worlds. 6 months had passed since the massacre at Harmony's Edge, and the galaxy looked the same on the surface. Human cargo ships still moved between colonies carrying supplies. Mining vessels still worked in asteroid fields extracting resources. Research stations still broadcast their scientific findings across space. But Admiral Inho Jian knew the truth. From the bridge of his flagship, the newly christened Ambassador Hyunwoo, He watched as humanity's greatest deception unfolded across the stars. What looked like peaceful merchant activity was actually the largest military buildup in galactic history. "Report from the Centauri Mining Collective," said his communications officer. "They've finished converting their asteroid processors. Each mining ship can now crack a moon in half. And the research stations? All sensor arrays have been upgraded. We can now detect ship movements 3 star systems away." Inho nodded with satisfaction. Operation Silent Thunder had worked better than anyone had hoped. Humanity's peaceful infrastructure had transformed into a war machine so quietly that no alien species had noticed. The Kethmaran Empire still believed they had crippled human expansion with their attack on the diplomatic station. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Sir," called out Colonel Mi Young, Sayo from her intelligence station. "We've identified the ships that attacked Harmony's Edge. They're currently resupplying at a depot called Velthera Prime, 3 systems from here." Inho studied the tactical display. Velthera Prime was a Kethmaran supply station, heavily defended and far from any human colonies. It would be the perfect place to send a message. How many ships? 12 combat vessels, the same ones from the attack, plus about 30 support ships and the space station itself, and our forces. We have 47 ships in the area. Mining vessels, cargo haulers, and research ships, all converted according to Silent Thunder protocols. Inho smiled grimly. The aliens would see a collection of harmless civilian ships approaching their military depot. They would never suspect that each cargo hauler carried enough firepower to level a city, or that each mining vessel was equipped with weapons designed to crack planets. "Colonel Seo, I want you to prepare something special for this engagement. Sir, I want you to find Ambassador Hyunwoo's final peace message, the one he intended to broadcast at Harmony's Edge, the one about friendship and cooperation." Mi Young looked confused. "Sir, why would we broadcast a peace message before attacking them?" "Because I want them to understand exactly what they rejected when they opened fire on our diplomats." The human fleet approached Velthera Prime slowly, maintaining the appearance of civilian vessels going about routine business. The converted cargo ship Steel Runner looked like it was carrying farming equipment to the outer colonies. In reality, it carried enough nuclear weapons to glass a continent. The mining vessel Deep Digger appeared to be hauling processed metals from an asteroid field. Actually, it carried the same rock-crushing equipment that had been used to hollow out mountains on Earth, now repurposed to tear apart enemy ships. The research ship Bright Future seemed to be conducting a routine scientific survey of the system. In truth, it was mapping every weakness in the enemy station's defenses and jamming their communication systems. "Incoming transmission from the Kethmoran station," reported the communications officer. "They're ordering us to change course and avoid their territory." "Open a channel," Inho commanded. "All frequencies, maximum broadcast range." The screen lit up with Ambassador Hyunwoo's image, recorded months ago in preparation for the peace conference that had ended in his death. His voice filled the communication channels, reaching not just the Kethmoran station but every ship and listening post in the system. "This is Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim of Earth, speaking to our friends across the galaxy. Humanity extends its hand in friendship to all species who share our dream of a galaxy where different peoples can work together for the benefit of all. We believe that understanding can overcome hatred, that cooperation can replace competition, and that peace can triumph over war." On Velthera Prime, Kethmaran officers watched the human transmission with growing alarm. They recognized the voice from the diplomatic station they had destroyed. But why were the humans broadcasting a message from their dead ambassador? Commander Thekful, who had led the attack on Harmony's Edge, was visiting the supply depot when the message began. He sneered at the screen showing the human diplomat. "More weakness from the pathetic humans," he told his subordinates. "They still don't understand that only strength matters in this galaxy." But his confidence wavered when he saw the human ships beginning to surround the station. There were dozens of them now, far more than the small diplomatic escort that had accompanied Harmony's Edge. And something about their approach patterns seemed wrong for civilian vessels. "Sir," called out one of his officers, "the human ships are not responding to our orders to leave the system." "Then destroy them," Tekful commanded. "Show them what happens when they ignore Kethmaran authority." The station's weapons powered up and fired on the nearest human ship, the cargo vessel Steel Runner. The plasma bolt struck its hull, but instead of exploding, The ship's armor absorbed the hits and glowed red-hot for a moment before cooling. "What kind of cargo ship has military-grade armor?" one of the Kethmaran officers asked in confusion. They got their answer when Steel Runner's cargo bay opened and launched a salvo of missiles that lit up the darkness of space like miniature suns. Each missile struck with the force of a volcanic eruption, tearing through the station's outer defenses like they were made of paper. "Impossible," Tekvul whispered. "Those are civilian vessels." But Admiral Inho's voice cut through their confusion as he took over the broadcast. "This is Admiral Inho Jian of the Human Peacekeeper Armada. You have just heard the message that Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim wanted to share with your people. He believed in friendship. He believed in cooperation. He believed in peace. The human ships opened fire as one, their weapons turning night into day around Velthera Prime. Mining lasers designed to cut through asteroids sliced through enemy ship hulls like knives through butter. Cargo missiles meant for delivering supplies to distant colonies delivered death instead. You chose to answer his offer of friendship with violence." Inho continued, his voice calm even as his ship systematically destroyed everything in the system. "You chose to murder beings who came to you with olive branches and dreams of cooperation. This is what you chose instead." The deep digger moved toward the space station itself, its massive mining equipment preparing to demonstrate what happened when tools designed to crack open moons were used against artificial structures. The station's commanders tried to surrender, broadcasting frantically on all frequencies. But Inho had learned from the Kethmaran playbook. When someone shows you weakness, you exploit it completely. Within 2 hours, Velthera Prime was nothing but debris floating in space. Every ship that had participated in the attack on Harmony's Edge was destroyed. Every weapon that had fired on human diplomats was silenced forever. But the human fleet didn't stop there. They systematically hunted down every Kethmaran vessel in the system, civilian or military, supply convoys, transport ships, even escape pods trying to flee the destruction. "Sir," Myung reported, "we're detecting distress calls from Kethmaran civilian ships. They're begging us to spare them." Inho thought of Ambassador Hyunwoo, clutching his olive branch as the station exploded around him. He thought of the 847 people who had died believing that peace was possible. "Did they spare our civilians at Harmony's Edge?" he asked quietly. "No, sir. They fired on escape pods and medical ships. Then we follow their example. No survivors, no witnesses except the ones we choose to leave alive to tell the story." As the last Kethmoran ship was destroyed, Inho opened communications one final time. This message would reach every listening post and communication relay in Kethmaran space, carrying news of what had happened at Velthera Prime. "This is Admiral Inho Jian of the Human Peacekeeper Armada," he said, looking directly into the camera. "We came to you in peace. We offered you friendship, cooperation, and mutual prosperity. You responded by murdering our ambassadors and destroying our hopes for a better galaxy." Behind him, the wreckage of Velthera Prime drifted in the darkness, a monument to the price of rejecting human friendship. "But we are not an unreasonable species. The offer still stands. Any Kethmaran who wishes to surrender and accept our friendship will be welcomed. Any who choose to continue fighting will join the wreckage behind me." The human fleet departed the system, leaving behind only debris and a warning that would echo across the galaxy. Earth had wanted peace. They had offered it freely, openly, hopefully. Now they would enforce it at gunpoint. The alien delegation entered the conference room with heavy steps that echoed off the metal walls. Hyunwoo noticed immediately that something felt wrong. The beings before him moved like soldiers, not diplomats. Their armor clinked as they walked, and their eyes swept the room like they were looking for threats instead of friends. "Welcome to Harmony's Edge," Hyunwoo said, bowing slightly as his cultural research had suggested. "I am Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim. We are honored by your presence." The lead alien did not bow back. Instead, he stood perfectly straight and spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. The translation device picked up his words and converted them to human language. "I am Commander Thekvul of the Kethmaran Empire. You will surrender your territory claims immediately, or face the consequences." The room fell silent. Hyunwoo blinked, confused. "I'm sorry, there seems to be some mistake. We invited the Veltari Confederation here for peace negotiations. We are not here to discuss surrender." Thekvul's skin shifted to a dark red color. "Your message was clear, human. You demand our submission with your threats of friendship and cooperation. You mock us with your symbols of conquest." He pointed at the olive branch on the table. No, no, Hyunwoo said quickly, reaching for the branch. This is a symbol of peace. We want to end the fighting, not start more of it. But Thekvul saw the movement as a threat. In his culture, reaching for objects during negotiations was a sign of aggression. His hand went to the weapon at his side. Admiral Jihai Park stepped forward. Ambassador, I think we need to evacuate the station. These are not Veltari. Look at their ships again. On the screens around the room, the 12 alien vessels suddenly looked different. What had seemed like elegant diplomatic ships now revealed their true nature. Weapon ports opened along their hulls. Energy readings spiked as they charged their guns. All stations, red alert, Jihai spoke into her communicator. This is not a diplomatic mission. Repeat, this is not a diplomatic mission. Thekvul spoke rapidly into his own communication device. The sounds he made were harsh and angry. Nothing like the musical language of the Veltari that Dongmin had studied for years. Sir, Wusung said urgently, I'm reading massive power buildup from their weapons. They're targeting our main reactor. Hyunwoo held up his hands. Please, there has been a misunderstanding. We can work this out. We don't want to fight you. Your weakness disgusts me, Thekvul replied. In our empire, those who show fear deserve only death. The first explosion shook the entire station. Emergency lights flickered on as power fluctuated throughout Harmony's Edge. Through the conference room windows, they could see bright flashes as the alien ships fired their weapons at the station's outer hull. Evacuation pods now, Jihai shouted. Everyone to the escape pods! But it was too late. The alien ships had surrounded the station completely. Their weapons tore through Harmony's Edge like it was made of paper. The conference room's windows cracked as another blast hit nearby. Hyunwoo grabbed the olive branch from the table, clutching it to his chest. Even now, even as his life's work crumbled around him, he could not let go of his hope for peace. This doesn't have to happen, he called out to Thekvul. The alien commander watched with satisfaction as his ships destroyed the human station. This is what happens to species that think they can threaten the Kethmoran Empire with their pathetic displays of weakness. The station's hull began to crack. Air rushed out through the growing holes, carrying furniture, papers, and people into the cold vacuum of space. Emergency barriers slammed shut, dividing the station into smaller sections, but it was clear that Harmony's Edge was dying. In the chaos, Jihai Park fought her way toward an escape pod. She had served in 3 wars and survived dozens of battles, but she had never seen such senseless destruction. The aliens were not just attacking the station. They were destroying it completely, making sure no one could survive. Dr. Dongmin Lee was trapped in the translation booth when a plasma blast tore through the wall. His last act was to activate the emergency recording system, hoping that someone would find the evidence of what really happened here. Sujin Choi tried to reach the diplomatic archives, wanting to save the peace treaties she had worked so hard to write. A section of ceiling collapsed, crushing her dreams of trade agreements and mutual cooperation. Wu Sung Yang made it to the communication center and sent out a desperate message on all frequencies. This is Harmony's Edge. We are under attack. The peace conference was a trap. Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them we tried. Captain Jae-ho Nam of the patrol ship Swift Current was conducting routine maintenance on a communications relay 2 kilometers away when the attack began. He watched in horror as the beautiful diplomatic station was torn apart by alien weapons. Record everything, he told his crew. Every second of this. The whole galaxy needs to see what they did. His ship's cameras captured it all. The alien vessels firing without warning. The desperate escape pods being shot down one by one. The final moments of Harmony's Edge as it broke apart and tumbled toward Earth's atmosphere. Most shocking of all, the cameras recorded Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim in his final moments. Through a cracked window of the destroyed conference room, they could see him still holding the olive branch, still trying to communicate with the alien commander, even as the station died around him. The last image was of Hyunwoo pressing the olive branch against the glass, as if he could somehow make the aliens understand that he had only wanted peace. Then the window shattered and he was gone. Jihai Park was one of only 12 survivors. Her escape pod was damaged and spinning out of control, but Captain Jae-ho managed to catch it with his ship's tractor beam. As she was pulled aboard the Swift Current, she could only stare at the debris field that had once been humanity's greatest hope for peace. How many? She asked weakly. 847 people were on that station. Jeho replied quietly. We found 12 survivors so far. Jihai closed her eyes. 835 people had died today. Scientists, diplomats, translators, engineers, cooks, janitors. People who had believed that peace was possible. People who had volunteered to risk their lives for the chance to end the wars. Did you get it all on video? She asked. Every second. Good. Jihai's voice was hard now, all traces of the diplomat replaced by the admiral she had once been. Make sure every human in the galaxy sees what happened here. Make sure they understand what our offer of peace got us. The swift current turned away from the debris field and began its journey back to Earth. Behind them, the alien ships collected samples of the wreckage, probably to study human technology. They showed no interest in searching for survivors. As they flew through space, Captain Jeho transmitted the video recording on all human frequencies. Within hours, every human colony, every human ship, every human outpost would know exactly what had happened to Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim and his dream of peace. The images would be burned into humanity's memory forever. Their greatest peacemaker, clutching an olive branch as his ship exploded around him, their most hopeful moment turned into their darkest tragedy. Earth had wanted peace. They had offered friendship, cooperation, and understanding. In return, they had received death and destruction from beings who saw kindness as weakness. But the aliens had made one critical mistake. They had attacked the wrong species. They had destroyed the wrong dream. And now, humanity would show them the difference between choosing peace and being unable to fight. The war was about to begin. The emergency meeting room in Earth's Global Defense Center had never felt so heavy with sorrow. Admiral Young-Soo Han sat at the head of the long metal table, staring at the screen that showed the debris field where Harmony's Edge used to be. Around him, the most powerful leaders in human space sat in stunned silence. The video from Captain Jeho Nam's ship played again on the main screen. Everyone had seen it dozens of times already, but they kept watching. They watched Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim hold up the olive branch. They watched the alien ships fire without warning. They watched humanity's greatest hope for peace die in the cold darkness of space. 847 people, said Minister Boram Shin, her voice barely above a whisper. 847 of our best and brightest gone. Admiral Young-Soo turned off the screen. He had seen enough. They all had. The question now is what we do about it. General Kyung-Ho Bae slammed his fist on the table. What we do is make them pay for every single life they took. They wanted war? We'll give them war. It's not that simple, said Dr. Min-Suk Lim, the head of Colonial Affairs. We don't even know who they really are. The intelligence reports say they were pretending to be Veltari, but they called themselves Kethmaran. It doesn't matter what they call themselves, Admiral Young-Soo said quietly. What matters is that they killed our people when all we wanted was peace. Minister Boram pulled up her tablet and began reading the casualty list. Dr. Dongmin Lee, our best translator. Gon Sujin Choi, who negotiated the trade deals that kept our outer colonies alive. Gone. Wu Sung Yang, who knew more about alien politics than anyone else in human space. Gone. She continued reading names, each one hitting the room like a physical blow. Scientists who had spent their lives trying to understand alien cultures. Engineers who had built the bridges between human and alien technology. Teachers who had trained a generation of diplomats. They didn't just kill our people, she said finally. They killed our future. These were the humans who would have led us into a peaceful galaxy. Now they're dead, and we're left with nothing but anger. Admiral Young-Soo stood up and walked to the window that looked out over Earth's capital city. Below him, millions of people went about their daily lives, not yet understanding how everything had changed. Soon enough, they would learn. Soon enough, the whole human race would know that their dream of peace had been murdered. Admiral Ji-Hai Park wants to address the council, said his aide, stepping into the room. She's the ranking survivor from Harmony's Edge. Send her in. Ji-Hai entered the room, her arm in a sling and her face marked by burns from the escape pod's damaged life support. But her eyes burned with a fire that everyone recognized. She had been a diplomat for 5 years, but before that, she had been one of humanity's most feared military commanders. They saw our peace as weakness, she said, without any greeting or ceremony. They thought we were trying to threaten them with friendship. In their minds, only weak species offer cooperation instead of demanding submission. What do you recommend? asked Young-Soo. "I recommend we show them exactly how wrong they were." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what she meant. Everyone understood the implications. Dr. Haewon Ko, the head of Earth's Advanced Weapons Division, cleared her throat. "If we're going to do this, we need to do it right. We have technologies that have been classified for decades, projects that were developed during the early expansion years but never used because we chose diplomacy instead." "What kind of technologies?" asked Minister Boram. "The kind that can turn asteroids into weapons. The kind that can make cargo ships into battleships. The kind that can take our mining equipment and turn it into siege engines." Haewon paused. "We developed them hoping we would never need them, but we kept them just in case." General Kyung-ho leaned forward. "How long would it take to activate these projects?" 6 months, maybe less if we push hard. The infrastructure is already there. We just need to change what we're building." Young-Soo looked around the table at each face. These were good people, people who had believed in peace as much as Ambassador Hyun-woo had. But they were also human, and humans protected their own. "There's something else we need to consider," said Intelligence Director Sang-min Park. "Our colonies are scattered across hundreds of systems. If we're going to war, we need to make sure they're all protected." "What are you suggesting?" "Operation Silent Thunder." The name hung in the air like a ghost. Operation Silent Thunder was humanity's most classified military protocol, developed during the early days of expansion when they feared alien attack. It had never been activated because diplomacy had always worked instead. Silent Thunder would mobilize every human colony simultaneously, Sang-min explained. Every merchant ship becomes a scout. Every mining operation becomes a weapons factory. Every research station becomes a listening post. Within weeks, we would have the largest military force in the galaxy. Minister Boram shook her head, but that would mean giving up everything we've built. Our peaceful colonies, our trade relationships, our scientific research programs, everything would be focused on war. They made that choice for us, Ji-hai said coldly. When they fired on Harmony's edge, they decided that peace was impossible. Now we have to live with their decision. Young-Soo returned to his seat and looked at each person around the table. "I want to vote. All in favor of activating Operation Silent Thunder and beginning full military mobilization?" One by one, hands rose around the table. Dr. Min-suk, who had spent her career trying to build peaceful relationships with alien species. General Kyung-ho, who had always preferred diplomatic solutions to military ones. Minister Boram, who had negotiated dozens of peaceful trade agreements, even Dr. Haewon, who had hoped her weapons would never be needed, raised her hand. The vote was unanimous. "Then it's decided." Young-Soo's voice was heavy with the weight of history. "Send the activation codes to every human world, every human ship, every human outpost in the galaxy." The message is simple: peace was rejected. Protect humanity. Within hours, the coded transmissions reached the farthest corners of human space. On Mars, factories that built farming equipment began retooling to build weapons. On the mining colonies of the asteroid belt, engineers started converting their rock-crushing machines into ship-killing cannons. On the research stations near alien space, scientists began packing up their peaceful experiments and preparing to become humanity's eyes and ears in enemy territory. On the trade ships that carried goods between worlds, captains opened sealed orders that told them how to convert their vessels into warships. The transformation was not visible from the outside. To alien observers, humans continued their normal activities. Ships still carried cargo. Colonies still sent out mining expeditions. Research stations still broadcast their scientific discoveries. But beneath the surface, something fundamental had changed. The peaceful species that had offered friendship to the galaxy was gone. In its place, something ancient and terrible was awakening, something that had been sleeping since humanity first reached for the stars. The Kethmoran Empire had made a simple mistake. They had seen humanity's offer of peace and assumed it meant humans were weak. They had looked at Earth's merchant ships and mining equipment and thought they were seeing a helpless target. They had never considered the possibility that a species might choose peace not because they were unable to fight, but because they understood the true cost of war. They had never imagined that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or their technology, but their ability to turn anything into a weapon when their survival was threatened. The sleeping giant was awake now, and it was very, very angry. Dr. Hei-Wan Ko sealed the last of her classified research files and prepared to open projects that had been hidden for decades. "I hope they're ready," she said quietly to her assistant, "because we're about to show them what happens when you murder peacemakers." Outside her window, Earth continued to spin peacefully in space. But appearances, as the Kethmaran Empire was about to learn, could be very deceiving. The stars looked different from the observation deck of Harmony's Edge. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim stood with his hands pressed against the cold metal railing, watching Earth slowly spin below them. The blue and green planet seemed so peaceful from this distance. No wars, no conflicts, just a beautiful world floating in the darkness. "Sir, the alien ships are approaching," said his aide, stepping up beside him. "They should arrive in 3 hours." Hyunwoo nodded but did not look away from Earth. Today would either mark the beginning of a new era of peace in the galaxy, or it might be the last day he ever saw his homeworld. He had spent 5 years preparing for this moment, 5 years of learning alien languages, studying their cultures and writing proposals that he hoped would end decades of fighting. The space station. Harmony's Edge was humanity's greatest achievement. It floated in orbit above Earth, a massive structure of steel and glass that housed diplomats, scientists, and peacekeepers from across human space. Today, it would host the most important meeting in human history. "Are the others ready?"
Hyunwoo asked. "Yes, sir."
Admiral Ji-Hai Park is in the command center reviewing security protocols. Dr. Dong-Min Lee is in the translation booth, making final checks on the communication systems. Soo-Jin Choi is in her office going over the trade agreements one more time, and Woo Sung-Yang is monitoring all incoming transmissions. Hyunwoo smiled. His team was the best humanity could offer. Ji-Hai had commanded fleets in the border conflicts but always sought to minimize casualties. Dongmin could speak 12 alien languages fluently. Soo-Jin had negotiated trade deals that kept human colonies fed and supplied. Woo-Sung knew more about alien politics than anyone alive. "Good," he said. "Then we are as ready as we can be." The ambassador walked through the corridors of Harmony's Edge, nodding to the staff he passed. Everyone seemed nervous but hopeful. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing the risks. If the peace talks failed, this station would likely become a target. But they believed, as he did, that peace was worth the risk. In his private office, Hyunwoo opened the sealed container on his desk. Inside lay a small branch from an olive tree, grown in Earth's soil. It was an ancient symbol of peace dating back thousands of years. He planned to present it to the alien delegation as a gesture of friendship. His computer chimed. A message from his daughter So-Young appeared on the screen. She was studying at university on Mars, training to become a doctor. Her brother Tai-Jun was serving as a junior officer on an exploration ship near the outer colonies. "Dad," she said in the recording, "I know today is important. I know you're scared even though you won't admit it. But I want you to know that everyone on Mars is proud of you. You're doing something that could save millions of lives. We love you." Hyunwoo touched the screen where her face smiled back at him. His children understood what this mission meant. If successful, they would grow up in a galaxy where humans and aliens could work together, instead of fighting each other. A soft knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in." Admiral Ji-Hai Park entered, her uniform crisp and her expression serious. "Sir, I need to discuss the security situation." "What about it?" "Our intelligence suggests that not everyone in the alien confederation wants peace. There are factions that view our expansion into disputed space as an act of aggression. They might see this peace conference as a sign of weakness." Hyunwoo set down his coffee cup. "Do you think we're in danger?" "I think we're always in danger when we're trying to change the way things have always been done. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try." Ji-Hai paused. "I've positioned our fastest ships nearby just in case. But I hope we won't need them." "So do I." The hours passed quickly. Dongmin ran final tests on the translation equipment. Soo-Jin reviewed her notes about alien trade customs one more time. Woo-Sung monitored communications channels, listening for any signs of trouble. As the alien ships approached, everyone gathered in the main conference room. The walls were lined with screens showing the approaching fleet. 12 ships, sleek and silver, moving in perfect formation. They looked nothing like human vessels, which tended to be bulky and practical. These ships were beautiful, like works of art flying through space. "They're requesting permission to dock," reported the communications officer. "Granted," Hyunwoo said. "And open all communication channels." I want to broadcast our welcome message to them and to every human colony within range. He stood before the main screen, straightening his diplomatic robes. Behind him, the olive branch sat in a place of honor on the conference table. He had rehearsed this speech hundreds of times, but his heart still raced. This is Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim of Earth, speaking to our friends from the Veltari Confederation. We welcome you to Harmony's Edge with open hearts and peaceful intentions. Humanity extends its hand in friendship to all species who share our dream of a galaxy where different peoples can work together for the benefit of all. He paused, looking directly into the camera. We know there have been conflicts in the past. We know there has been mistrust and fear. But we believe that understanding can overcome hatred, that cooperation can replace competition, and that peace can triumph over war. Today we offer not just our words, but our commitment to a better future for all our children. The alien ships docked without incident. Through the station's sensors, Hyunwoo could see figures moving through the docking tubes. They were tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shift color in the light. The Veltari, according to his research, were an ancient species known for their wisdom and their skill in negotiations. Sir, Woo-sung said quietly, I'm picking up some unusual energy signatures from their ships. Nothing that looks like weapons, but the patterns are different from what our files show for Veltari technology. Different how? I'm not sure. Maybe they've upgraded their ships since our last encounter. Hyunwoo nodded. It made sense that an advanced species would constantly improve their technology. He turned his attention back to the docking bay, where the alien delegation was now visible through the security cameras. The lead figure was impressive, wearing what looked like ceremonial armor decorated with symbols that seemed to move and shift. Behind him came 6 others, each carrying what appeared to be gifts or documents. They're in the station, Ji-hai reported. Security teams are escorting them to the conference room. Hyunwoo picked up the olive branch, feeling its smooth bark beneath his fingers. In a few minutes, he would meet beings from another world and offer them this simple symbol of peace. Everything humanity had worked for, everything they hoped to achieve, would depend on the next few hours. Positions, everyone, he said. It's time to make history. The doors to the conference room opened and the future walked in.